We should treat the world with respect. That doesn't mean we have to respect everything that happens within it. People who have climbed to the top of the wealth ladder and secured financial freedom aren't as significant as they're often made out to be. They suffer just as much as anyone else. They are rarely loved, even though they are imitated by those who want to become like them. When disciples expect something from their guru and feel disappointed, they may turn against the very person they once followed, taking on a heavy karmic burden through that opposition. Clinging to selfishness, ego, and the restless mind only leads us astray. Those who cultivate inner culture gain personal experience and knowledge. Through genuine practice, come to embody a powerful form of wisdom. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Master. What brought you to this place? A cosmic event. Meeting one's master is always a cosmic event, I'd say. Let me explain why. To me, every encounter is a cosmic event in its own right. Exactly. And it's even more so when you meet your master. Because a master is the one person who enters your life for a single reason, to help you, to give you deeper insight into life, to show you what you're doing here at all, and why any of this is happening in the first place. I treat every encounter with great respect, not just because the person might be important in themselves, but because they have appeared in my life. Once someone becomes part of your life, it matters. And if you don't value that, then what really is valuable at all, if you don't appreciate it? At the same time, there are many taboos surrounding the relationship with a master. I had my own, and they genuinely held me back. I saw people worshiping their masters, performing rituals and ceremonies. And over time, I noticed that much of it lacked sincerity. There was no inner feeling behind it. And I know that you forbid such ceremonies. I run away from them. You constantly remind us that what truly matters is the inner state, something that scarcely survives in a world of reality shows and empty performance. What matters is the sincerity between people. I believe it's important to nurture a relationship with a master because it teaches sincerity more easily than almost anything else. A master can be a teacher, a parent, a friend, a brother, all of these at once. By reflecting their inner state, it becomes easier to practice new attitudes within yourself. Yes, absolutely. Quite right. First of all, a master appears when you've fallen asleep. A master is there to disturb your comfort zone. A teacher, by contrast, often lets you remain asleep. A teacher tends to do what the student prefers. Then the student says, "My teacher is just wonderful. He always supports me, loves me, helps me, and tells me exactly what to do." That is not what a master does. A master always disrupts your comfort zone. Because once you've truly decided to transform, to rise above yourself and your ego, a teacher alone is often not enough. A teacher can point the way. The rest is up to you. For that deeper journey to begin, a master enters your life. There comes a moment when a teacher becomes a master. And then the real work begins. They make you work hard. It can feel uncomfortable, but it is a much faster path. Yes, I forbid worship. I forbid paramaskars. First of all, I see no point in them. What we should worship is sincerity itself. If someone truly wishes to worship, they should do so inwardly, in the heart. One should worship sincerity. The highest form of love, the unconditional state, the true human value. Worship means striving for what you worship, walking that path, and dedicating yourself to it completely. Then I help people rise very quickly. No outward display is required. I don't need it. Even without it, I can see who thinks what. I feel people's intentions. I understand them, though I never speak of it. I simply wait, humbly, for the transformative energies to awaken within a person, so they can realize what truly matters in this life. Sometimes I see people trying to build a cult. They want it that way. They have every right to. It feels easier to them. They like it, but it's only a stage. With time, they begin to see that it doesn't work like that. They wait for the master to do something for them. At that point, the master would have to turn back into a teacher to give students what they want. Masters don't do that. They give what is needed, not what is desired. I've seen people leave their masters in disappointment, complaining that they didn't get what they asked for, that things weren't done the way they had imagined. For example, I'm not even talking about myself here. You know how this happens. When disciples expect something from their guru and feel disappointed, they may turn against the very person they once followed. This also happens. They take on a heavy karmic burden through that opposition. No guru will ever do what a disciple wants. They will do what the disciple needs. They will do what the soul needs. Because the personality is of little importance. Clinging to personality, selfishness, ego, and the restless mind only leads us astray. The inner state, the essence of one's being, are what we should hold on to. This is essentially what we live for. This is what we live through. This is why I prefer to run away. We should bow and worship within our hearts. Within the lotus of the heart, we should honor the highest presence. Outer expressions are insignificant. Sincerity itself is worship, you see? Love for the highest is worship. External forms may be necessary for those who are still at a certain stage. But as a rule, such people end up in other schools, where they remain for a long time. Eventually, after disappointment, they find those who show them that their true power lies within, in worshiping the highest power, in worshiping unconditional love, in worshiping devotion and determination. That is what brings happiness. Everything else is irrelevant. Master, you speak of universal values, principles that transcend time and exist in every era, beyond the cultural fashions imposed by society. They are timeless. They exist at a cosmic and planetary level. One of the greatest avatars of our age once said that the thousands of small actions we perform every day gradually become our habits. Those habits shape our intellect. Yes, the intellect shapes how we see reality, and that perception in turn determines our destiny. Today, in this digital world saturated with illusion, anyone can invent an idea and instantly gather a community online that claims to share the same values. We can all see what is happening around us. People identify as dogs and join groups built around that belief. Men identify and behave as women. It is a reality visible in many countries. I would like this discussion to reach such people, seen from a broader, almost cosmic perspective. There are individuals who have developed some understanding and progressed a little further.
Yet the vast majority of humanity remains caught in the effects of the ongoing performance playing out before them. We see people manufacturing illusions to make vast sums of money or gain influence over entire communities. Their values shift towards wealth and power, forces that affect most people yet lie far from the truth.
Everything below the level of the third chakra.
This is an extremely complex subject. I notice how the very idea of a relationship with a teacher unsettles people around me, even those close to me. Why am I giving importance to another person? Today, relationships revolve almost entirely around ego. Some people spread complete nonsense, yet they speak with such confidence that those who lack confidence themselves are easily persuaded. Millions of people fall for it. Whether we like it or not, we are surrounded by such individuals. We cannot ignore them. They are part of our lives. That is why I want this conversation to address them as well.
When you live among people who behave foolishly, as you rightly said, because they are stuck at a certain level of consciousness, they actually serve as a perfect example of what never to do. You already have enough awareness to recognize false ideas. When foolish ideas are voiced by complacent people, they begin to pass as knowledge for those at a lower level, simply because they are delivered with confidence. Now consider intelligent, wise people who lack confidence. They struggle to share their wisdom because they do not possess the necessary power. They are humble. They say, "We know the truth and that is enough." But they lack will, they lack force. Why do we practice yoga? Because inner dialogue, energy, information, wisdom, and personal experience must all be supported by power. When you listen to someone and feel power behind their words, you believe them. There are wise, evolved, cultured people who still walk this path, though very few remain. Culture itself has become distorted, and people are being led astray. Those who cultivate inner culture gain personal experience and knowledge, or at least trust the correctness of their understanding, but lack energy, will eventually, through genuine practice, come to embody a powerful form of wisdom. I repeat this often. Did you notice how many people joined us for yesterday's satsang? They all possess knowledge. Those who attend our satsangs, seminars, and retreats study extensively. They read, analyze, and practice. We come together. Now these people must develop the qualities that allow them to integrate Kriya into their own lives, into their families, their lineage, and society as a whole. You were born in Serbia. Serbia has a deeply rooted spiritual culture. It is one of the countries where spirituality has long been nurtured. Yet, as you rightly observed, people are often cut off from the heavenly dimension of existence, completely absorbed in social concerns. That is where they fall asleep. You live in Serbia. If you were to advise your friends and relatives now, do you think they would listen?
They didn't at first, but I remained steady and confident.
There, confident and determined. But behind that confidence and determination, there must be no ego.
Yes.
When the actions of confident, determined people are driven by ego, others respond through ego as well.
Yes.
Egos don't hear each other. This is very important. But when determination arises from sincerity, as we discussed earlier, Your words resonate with the heart of the other person. They touch something deeper. The mind may not understand, but the heart does. It knows everything.
But most people still live through the mind.
Certainly.
The whole world does.
Of course.
It's hard to control. The mind does not want anything to happen without asserting control.
Yes.
Modern science even recognizes that when someone makes a mistake, the mind immediately tries to justify it,
Right.
as if convincing the person that they were still in control of the situation. In my relationships, I have always tried to remain sincere. Patanjali explained that consciousness moves like a wave. There are moments of heightened clarity and understanding, followed by a fall back into the depths of attachment, selfishness, fear, and uncertainty. That is why he taught that through yoga we can strengthen
Right.
the purity of perception. Speaking of selfishness, the law of attraction is being popularized these days, largely as a tool for achieving ego-fueled ambitions. Its champions are very confident in their explanations of how it supposedly works. The law of attraction. Everyone seems to be talking about it. Not long ago, I listened to a talk by a well-known writer, the author of the Conversations with God series. Neil Donald Walsh said it genuinely pains him to see what's happening in the world. People are using what he sees as profound, cosmic knowledge for nothing more than material gain: cars, money, travel, clothes. Hardly anyone applies it to cultivating peace, inner stillness, or ending hunger. What do you make of that? Consciousness. I've noticed that many practitioners simply refuse to let go of their attachments. Even among my own peers, no one wants to renounce anything. Spiritual progress is still measured in worldly success. So how does one find balance while living in society?
You see, this is one of the traps laid by the forces of cosmic illusion. You want yoga? Here it is. That's just how the larger mechanism works. You want achievement, a luxury car, a lot of money? Do this posture, repeat this practice, and it's all yours. That alone tells you everything.
That's just how the larger mechanism works.
Yes, exactly. Most people, instead of loosening old attachments, simply create new ones, often even stronger than before. But I can assure you this won't last forever. Those who cling too tightly will suffer. As harsh as it sounds, it's true. Anyone deeply attached will eventually have to taste the bitterness of separation. They will experience loss. Their attachments cut away. A simple example. Imagine someone who seemingly has everything yet is dying of cancer. Right up until the final moments, they remain attached. They are afraid. Fear itself is a form of attachment, attachment to the body, to the world. They don't know what comes next, what awaits them, why life has ended so abruptly. After all, they still want to live. Karma doesn't ask whether they were good or bad, or what they did or failed to do. When the time comes, it comes. Prana is withdrawn. The breath leaves the body and death follows. This is why many masters and teachers, and I do distinguish between the two, although they merge into one at the highest universal level. Many masters and teachers give the same advice: let go of attachment. Yet they never demand withdrawal from society. You can dress well and still be free of it. Attachment to wealth, to material life, to possessions, blocks the path forward. Energy no longer flows towards such a person. They become stuck in a purely horizontal dimension, taking what they can from social interactions. Eventually, they take everything there is to take, leaving nothing for others. It's a dead end. And the forces of cosmic illusion do everything they can to keep people stuck there. Yoga is meant to serve people, just as sport once was. Sport is meant to serve people. There was a time when people lived for sport instead. Athletes ran themselves into the ground only to retire later with broken bodies. Records, podiums, medals, followed by health problems, stress, and struggles that no longer mattered. What mattered was winning, feeding the ego, proving to the world that they were the best. No one cared what came afterwards. Such figures are often forgotten within days. You've heard their stories. But those who practice yoga as a genuine path, yoga that serves the human being, become timeless. Look at the great teachers. They are still alive in the consciousness of countless people. Yogananda, Lahiri Mahasaya, immortal Babaji. He never truly died. He lives on in the consciousness of people, because he possesses the true riches of the universe. Think about it. He wears the same simple clothes. Outwardly, he appears to have nothing. Do you know why? Because he doesn't need anything. True freedom means this. You may have a car, a house, money, whatever is necessary, but you are not dependent on it. If it all disappears overnight, you remain whole. You carry on calmly with what you have. If resources appear, you use them. If they don't, even better. You gain time to devote yourself to something more meaningful.
For a practitioner, this is all perfectly clear. They've developed a conceptual understanding of how things are meant to be. But the real question is,
Yes,
how do they apply this understanding in everyday life? Are they determined enough to redirect the energy of attachment towards the expansion of consciousness? How do they turn theory into lived experience? The world around us operates on entirely different values, criteria, and laws. And it influences us far more than we influence it, even when we're in an elevated state of awareness. I understand that when a certain number of people, let's call it a critical mass, reach this level of consciousness, it will start to have an effect, but that mass doesn't yet exist. The reality we live in constantly applies pressure. Those driven by ego often rise to the top of society and achieve financial independence. By most standards, they're seen as successful.
yes.
When the average middle-class person looks at the comfortable lives of such figures, who are rarely respected in any deeper sense, they begin to idolize them. That idolization breeds suffering, and one's inner state in turn has a powerful influence over one's life.
They don't respect them, yet they still look up to them. Because these figures are deliberately shaped to make people behave in ways that serve the puppeteers of this world. The forces of cosmic illusion present them as role models, but role models of a lower nature. People who have climbed to the top of the wealth ladder and secured financial freedom aren't as significant as they're often made out to be. They suffer just as much as anyone else. They're treated like kings. They are rarely loved, even though they are imitated by those who want to become like them. And once someone does become like them, they pick up the baton and continue leading others astray. We spoke about this about a year ago. You said that from the perspective of cosmic laws, this is how life is meant to unfold. But people don't understand it, and they don't want it. Do you remember what I replied? I said that out of, say, 100,000 people, only a handful reach realization. Only a few, because they've truly grasped this principle. But as you rightly observed, once a critical mass of spiritual power begins to stir, each person starts influencing those closest to them. Gradually, society itself begins to change. People awaken to this power or energy, and that awakening amplifies it. In time, this critical mass will tip the scales. And for those who don't resonate with that shift, parallel realities remain open. This is Maya, an illusion. What's important to realize is this. Look, here's a nice teapot and a couple of cups. What do they symbolize for me? Communication, comfort. They're a source of positive energy, but I don't actually need to drink the tea, you see?
We see the essence. We communicate through the essence.
Yes.
I don't want to offend anyone. It's important.
Don't worry about offending anyone. Do you know why? Sorry for interrupting. Because a wise person is never offended, and a foolish one may take offense even at wisdom.
Yes.
So whether your words offend someone or not is entirely irrelevant. In fact, the Mahasiddhas, from whom he inherited the teachings that guide our lives today, were not at all gentle when it came to such matters. Do you know what they said? They said the modern human intellect resembles that of a chicken, that people today are essentially hen-witted. It sounds harsh, but there's truth in it.
Unfortunately, yes.
Or fortunately.
Yes, in a way, it can be seen as a kind of bliss. You mentioned Maya, an illusion. These days, everyone seems to be talking about it.
It's become fashionable.
Exactly, it's a trend. People repeat that everything is an illusion, yet they cling to it just as tightly and exploit it at the same time. Today, everything is exploited so that someone can impose ideas their mind has constructed. Consciousness, whatever its level of development, is constantly used by people to serve their own aims. It's now obvious that anyone can invent an idea, implant it in their own mind, and defend it ferociously. That's where conflict comes from. So let's clarify what illusion actually means. What is it really? It's not an illusion. It does exist. The tea exists. Pain exists. The world exists. It is an illusion, but it exists, and we exist within it. I remember you saying that no one will ever reach the spiritual dimension or realize their higher self and cosmic nature if they reject this world. In other words, if someone dismisses the world of Maya, the illusion, they will never become truly spiritual. I understand now why you said that. Nothing can be separated from the source of creation. Everything must remain where it is.
Let me clarify this for those who are still unaware.
Yes, yes.
Rejecting the world would be a mistake, because we must accept whatever is manifested in this dual reality. After all, we live in a world of duality. Everything that appears in this world deserves respect. But not rejecting it doesn't mean blindly going along with it. It means being fully aware of how this world functions. The penetrating power of consciousness that we rely on can lead us to an understanding, or an experience we call self-realization. Through that experience, we come to see that the world is an illusion. You often hear people say things like, "The world is an illusion," "Brahman is nothingness." They repeat these phrases without any direct experience behind them. Have you noticed how many so-called teachers there are online now?
Yes.
Everyone is there to teach something. What do they claim to be? A teacher, a bearer of special knowledge. What for? To attract people. They attract people to attract money and other resources. They produce content their audience will happily consume. And how do they justify it? They say they're sharing wisdom, that they've reached great heights, that they're serving others. But when you really look at such people, you often sense emptiness, because their actions are driven by a completely different energy. They lack the sincerity we were talking about. I'm not painting everyone with the same brush.
Yes, yes.
And I'm certainly not speaking about myself. I know exactly who and what I am. Those who truly understand this path study and practice. But we're talking in general terms about what's happening in the world right now. For instance, I recently saw a young man offering breathwork practices to achieve specific goals, yet he clearly doesn't understand what pranayama actually is. He simply doesn't have the experience to grasp the practice at a deeper level. You can feel it in the energy. It hasn't matured enough. At the same time, there are people who practice diligently, but have no opportunity to broadcast themselves. And if they do speak publicly, they do so gently, sincerely, and simply, because they have a purpose. Here's what's important. We should treat the world with respect. That doesn't mean we have to respect everything that happens within it. These are two different things. I don't respect the performances we're witnessing. I accept the situation, but that doesn't mean I think it's right. The distortion of knowledge we see in our era is unacceptable to me. To claim that such distortion is justified would be to deceive myself, to betray my own integrity. Truth must not be distorted, but to grasp it, we have to strive for it. That's why values exist. And at their core, those values are yoga itself. Many people don't even know why they practice yoga. They sit there with their legs forming a butterfly pose, not properly stretched, fingers arranged in some gesture. They don't know what any of it is for. Some do know, of course, but not fully.
You mentioned knowledge. The greatest avatar himself said that knowledge is not power, as so many people believe. He said that character is power.
Of course.
Knowledge is readily available. Take GPT, for instance. It can give you virtually any information you're looking for.
A popular contraption.
Yes. Character. He said that character is expressed, first of all, through love, steadiness, patience, and a number of other qualities. In general,
All positive qualities belong to character.
exactly, all that is positive. By character, we mean something eternal, something impeccable, something that can be likened to the Atman, the soul. Because what is a person without character? Yet society imposes entirely different values. Today, you don't even need character to obtain what is considered valuable. In fact, lacking character often makes it easier. In that sense, character can even become an obstacle to achieving one's goals. If someone appears online in a Ferrari or on a private jet, people are inclined to believe everything they say, regardless of its substance. Meanwhile, genuinely honest people, ready for sacrifice, and most people in this country are like that, struggle to make their voices heard because no one takes them seriously.
People rarely reflect on why they are here, what they were born for. The avatar you mentioned said, "There are only 3 questions one must answer. Fail to answer them, and happiness will remain out of reach. Where did you come from? Who are you now? And where are you going? What awaits you?" This is why we can speak of a few essential principles that stand above all others, and among them, 2 are paramount. Follow the master, fight the devil.
Yes,
That's all. Live by this principle, and nothing you fear will be able to touch you.
to get to the heart of what's happening in this world, we have to return to its origins. Even conventional science tells us that thousands or perhaps millions of years ago, everything emerged from a single point, what we call a singularity.
Yes.
This point was non-dual by nature. It was singular, the only thing that existed. All right, but before the world unfolded from that point, something had to exist already, because nothing comes from nothing. Quantum physicists are now suggesting that this something is consciousness, pure consciousness, something we still struggle to comprehend. And yet it is precisely this consciousness that gave rise to the universe as it later materialized or crystallized. Stars, planets, moons,
Everything we see.
including us, we were created from it. which means our individual consciousness is a part of that universal consciousness.
Yes.
At its core, all we are really trying to awaken to is the fact that our consciousness is inseparable from the consciousness of the universe itself. I don't know how food is digested. I don't know how new cells are formed. I don't know how the body heals itself. No one truly does, which means consciousness exists. That's the essence of what we're pointing to. Can we make this clear for ordinary people? That we're not promoting some new philosophy or belief system? I was genuinely upset when I came across criticism directed at a teacher, but teachers are always criticized. True knowledge inevitably gets in the way. Can we explain that this knowledge, the teaching you share, contains nothing personal? These ideas weren't invented by you, Imram. They are simply laws that have always governed this world. Laws that are still at work now, shaping how life unfolds. All we're really doing is helping people become aware of the illusion, imposed on their minds through Instagram and other information channels.
In fact, your question already contains the answer.
Perhaps I should be a little more humble.
But essentially, you're absolutely right. There is a primary source that has always existed, expressing itself in countless forms. When we want to understand the laws of the universe and how it operates, we use certain technologies. We rely on science to help us make sense of life. We have no desire to interfere in other people's lives with this knowledge. We apply it for ourselves. This knowledge was not invented by Imram. But Imram has lived it, applied it, and gained direct experience through it. And that experience is what he shares. Imram doesn't force anyone to follow him. People come of their own accord. And of course, there are those who don't like it. There's nothing wrong with that.
You've pointed out something genuinely intriguing, and it's worth lingering on. All of this unfolds naturally. Many things just happen.
Yes.
People are drawn to you, to the knowledge you share.
All the time. And that in itself tells me we're on the right track.
I have absolutely no doubt about it. What finally convinced me, if I may say I was convinced at all...
At a human level, you're entitled to everything.
Yes, yes. I've lived long enough to gain a clear sense of how life works, and of what things are really worth. You mentioned that humanity is increasingly fixated on accumulating material things. Most people who fail to reach their material goals remain unhappy even on their deathbeds by what they never managed to own. I was once like that too. I believed money and what it could buy would bring happiness. But once I had it, I realized it didn't work the way I'd imagined. And I came to understand that most people will never see how they've been misled.
Yes.
It's far easier to deceive people than to persuade them they've been deceived. So in the end, everyone remains trapped in the illusion. But you've said that you don't do anything, that it simply happens.
Absolutely.
It just happens. I spent a long time reflecting on this, meditating on this, watching how it all unfolds. And I realized that when someone's consciousness opens up, when it expands, they effectively move into another reality. This is what we call a quantum leap.
Yes, yes.
When that transition happens, other people are naturally drawn to them. Often they don't even realize it themselves. I've seen this many times. People can't explain why they feel drawn to such individuals. They can't grasp it intellectually, but they feel it.
They're drawn unconsciously.
Drawn to that reality they themselves long to enter. So how does it work, this idea of I do nothing and yet it happens?
It's true that outwardly I don't do anything. It simply happens. But it happens because my intention carries the highest power. It manifests according to quantum principles. You've just mentioned quantum physics yourself.
Yes.
Our consciousness has the capacity to bring events and processes into being. Processes that naturally attract others, because that's who you are. You couldn't be anyone else even if you tried. Your elevated nature keeps rising, seeking expression from that higher point. You manifest through identification with your highest self. Your life begins to shift of its own accord, and your true nature becomes evident, even though physically you appear to be doing nothing at all. You're simply sitting there in silence. I can recall countless moments when I decided I wouldn't act, wouldn't speak, and yet people still approached me and asked, "Could you give me some advice? Am I doing this the right way?" I would ask them, "Why are you asking me?" And they'd reply, "Because we feel you're the one who has the answer."
Even though they don't actually know who you are.
Exactly, they don't.
One of the key words you mentioned was intention. About 15 years ago, I went to one of your concerts in St. Petersburg. It left a deep impression on me, much like your teaching as a whole. During that concert, you said that intention, sankalpa,
Yes.
is the most powerful force in the universe. I've read quite a bit about it since, and this is how I understand it. Consciousness existed even before the material world came into being, before matter crystallized.
Yes.
A kind of cosmic consciousness,
The primary source.
prior consciousness.
Yes.
This consciousness, in a sense, grew bored and used its own power of intention to create worlds, to make existence engaging, to give itself the possibility of experiencing itself. When I grasped this idea properly, I finally understood why intention is considered the most powerful force of all. Because we ourselves arose from intention, from sankalpa.
Yes.
You could even say that it is the purity of our thoughts and intentions that ultimately shapes our lives. We don't necessarily need to practice or analyze this intellectually. We can see it happening all around us. Great revolutionaries, ascetics, remarkable men, and the women who gave birth to them.
Yes.
So could you clarify what sankalpa really is, what lies at its core? This is the aim of practice itself, to refine our thoughts and consciousness to such a degree of purity that this law begins to operate on its own, and our intentions naturally take form. For example, if I want a G-Wagon and my thoughts and intentions around that are pure, I know it sounds absurd, but let's unpack the nuance here.
You see, a state of genuinely pure thoughts and intentions is something only self-realized individuals reach. Those who have undergone deep inner transformation. Put simply, purity of intention and thought emerges at the very final stage of human development, at the highest level of being. Those who arrive at this state no longer need to practice pure consciousness. Through pure consciousness, they are already connected to the divine, to the primary source, and the primary source itself begins to act through such people. Duality may still appear to exist, but when a person fully immerses themselves in the primary source and dissolves into it, they become the creators of their own reality, or, metaphorically speaking, the creators of an entirely new universe.
Yes.
Like Brahma.
Yes.
At that level, there is no need for practice. One simply expresses one's creative potential. Yoga exists to help those on this path attain purity of thought and intention, purity of heart and consciousness. Once this state is reached, yoga itself is no longer necessary. This is the ultimate truth of yoga, the highest yoga, if you like. Yoga is about reconnection. It creates conditions in which a person no longer falls back. External changes stop affecting them. The kinds of changes that would otherwise destabilize a practitioner, knock them off course, or prevent them from rising higher or going deeper. Yoga neutralizes these influences. It is a powerful tool, a weapon in the best possible sense, that prevents the mind from wandering and prolonging suffering. It isn't about escaping reality. It's about living in this world without suffering. Take compassion, for instance. Compassionate people grow inwardly, and they are able to share the suffering of others, those who evoke pity. Yet even this is not considered the highest state. Because compassion still involves suffering, it is shared suffering. Even if it is a noble experience that you consciously enter into, and even if you are strong enough to endure it, you are still suffering. Purity of thought and intention means you have moved beyond this level. You transcend these dynamics, you rise above duality. From this state of purity, your heart is fully open to the world, because the world exists within your consciousness. The penetrating force of your consciousness envelops everything. When such a person walks down the street, others begin to think in alignment with them. This is why suffering, as tragic as it sounds, is often the only path through which a human being can arrive at true purity. And once you understand this, why not begin practicing now? Why not prepare yourself gradually for purity and humility? These are the qualities we recognize in genuine spiritual leaders. They were profoundly humble. They didn't promote themselves on Instagram. Yet when they thought a thought, others began to think it too. Why? The purity of their consciousness, its penetrating power, allowed them to exist within the consciousness of others. It reached people at the level of the heart, at the essence of who they are. Everything became clear from within. The next time a truly high spiritual being appears, and such a being is already here on earth, their manifestation will be like a thunderstorm. Just as lightning can be seen from every direction, that purity will extend into the consciousness of every person. Those who are unable to accept it will move into a parallel reality. Another earth already exists for them, where the same laws apply, where they will scroll Instagram and enjoy much the same lives as before, if we may put it that way.
Of course, most people won't believe this straight away.
That's their problem.
Yes, they're not bothered. We've all heard the saying that karma eventually catches up with you. At the same time, we know that we experience the world entirely from within our own consciousness. For me personally, nothing exists outside it. Even you right now are part of my consciousness.
Yes.
This camera too is part of that world. Everything around us actually happens.
That's right.
Inside me.
The world serves you.
When I understood this, I stopped seeing any point in taking offense, because everything unfolds within consciousness. When I fall asleep, everything vanishes. When I wake up, the world reappears, but only within my consciousness. It's often said that for a person to reach higher consciousness, they must turn to the primary source, to cosmic consciousness, to their guru or teacher, and practice. But praying to any of these is pointless unless you receive a blessing from your own consciousness first. In that sense, karma doesn't exist as something separate from us. It functions more like a mechanism that directs our lives. When harmony is disturbed, that mechanism eventually brings the disturbance back to us.
Of course.
There is no real separation. Karma exists as part of consciousness itself. Once consciousness expands, once a person makes an effort to heal their mindset, break destructive habits, or let go of harmful qualities, it happens immediately, because it only ever existed within their consciousness.
Yes.
People sometimes think they can escape karma, but their actions were born of their consciousness in the first place. You can run from people, places, or situations, but you can't run from yourself. It's your own consciousness that will catch up with you.
Of course.
And hold you accountable.
This is a universal law. Cause and effect work flawlessly. If you take something, you must give something in return. For example, you're absolutely right, and I agree with everything you've said. But when consciousness becomes pure, the laws of karma change as well. A person becomes subtler, more refined. Where they were once harsh, they soften. Where they had to take action, now a single thought is enough. Before, they would flare up in anger, now they remain calm. They may dislike what's happening, but they observe it without losing composure. Do you see the contrast? Earlier they would shout, criticize, attack, now they don't. Consciousness keeps shifting, becoming cleaner and clearer. Ask any teacher, any genuine master, whether they are engaged in this world. They'll tell you they are not, because to them, the world doesn't truly exist. You yourself said that when you close your eyes, the world disappears. Everything exists only within consciousness, and when consciousness dissolves into God, only God remains. The world doesn't exist. And consider this as well. The primary source itself, the universe itself, exists only because you exist. If you didn't exist, neither would the universe.
It wouldn't be wrong to say that every person stands at the center of their own universe.
Of course.
From that center, they observe the universe.
Absolutely. Wherever you are, that's the center of the universe.
Another idea that's become very popular online lately is acceptance. At first, I couldn't really get my head around it, but eventually something clicked. Let me share how I see it.
Yes.
And you can tell me whether I'm on the right track. When something bad happens, when we're deceived, betrayed, or treated unjustly, people often say, just accept it. But accepting something like that is incredibly difficult. And it doesn't only apply to personal experiences. It can affect your family, your city, even your country. Many recent events are plainly unfair. They affect,
Yes.
and threaten everyone. I came to realize that the point isn't to accept injustice itself. In fact, such things shouldn't be accepted at all. They should be resisted. But resistance doesn't mean tearing yourself apart from within. We shouldn't cut off the parts of ourselves we dislike or reject. Instead, we need to calm down and accept ourselves in that situation. Even when we're surrounded by negativity that seeps into us, we must accept ourselves as we are in that moment. You often speak about this, with all our strengths and flaws.
Yes.
This kind of acceptance restores inner wholeness. And once we stop being emotionally entangled in what's happening, we can begin to act clearly and objectively. That said, we must not tolerate the negativity we encounter. I will not accept deception or betrayal. That's unacceptable. This may sound like I'm contradicting the principle, but I don't believe we even have the right to accept such things.
Yes, absolutely. People often interpret acceptance through the lens of the ego. To them it means surrendering, agreeing, not resisting, because this is your karma playing out. You hear things like, if this is happening to you, you must be at fault. You need to work on yourself. These are illusions. They mislead people. Another example. Imagine malicious voices slandering a saint to prevent him from fulfilling his purpose. What about his karma? He is a saint. His heart is open. What is he meant to be guilty of? And what does acceptance mean for him? You're right, he accepts the spirit within him. He accepts himself as he is. He accepts his personal experience. He may clearly understand what he needs to do and where his attention belongs at very high levels that transcend ordinary human concerns.
Yes.
In that sense, he accepts himself in the situation simply because it has occurred. But it doesn't disturb him. This is very different from people who feel compelled to prove themselves right to the world. They end up fighting the world itself. They sink down to another level, lowering their vibration to engage in something beneath them. There's nothing there. For a saint, it's like dust, like dirt. You see, they simply brush it off. And yet within all of this, they still perceive the manifestation of the divine. For example, gold remains gold even when it's covered in dirt.
Yes, yes.
The purest diamond is still a diamond even when it's caked in mud. Yes, it may look sullied on the surface, but it doesn't lose its worth. The same applies to the values you've received from above. You've worked to acquire them, and they never disappear. They are yours for good. One might say that the Creator, the universe, is testing how unshakable you are. That's quite possible. But that doesn't mean the Creator tests you through the filth produced by the world. The Creator does not test a saint through slander. He does not engage in deception, murder, or base behavior, only to later say, "I was testing you." God would never do that because He is free of such qualities. God never tests anyone. Do you see what I mean? It's a fabrication. God never punishes anyone. There is unconditional love, equally extended to the worst scoundrels.
Yes, yes.
If I may put it that way, and to saints alike. There's a parable about a saint who came before the Absolute and noticed a criminal in that angelic realm. He turned to God. It's an anecdote, of course.
Yes.
But one with real philosophical weight. He said, "I prayed to you for 40 years. I practiced asceticism and discipline. I know who this man is. Over those 40 years, he did nothing of value. Why is he here?" And the primary source, the Father, the Creator, replied, "Had you asked me 5 minutes before death with the same sincerity, it would have equaled those 40 years of effort." Such was the power of that moment. He wouldn't have needed all those years of fasting and practices. What truly matters is sincerity, the purity of intention and thought. As for those who want to wallow in dirt, let them. I'm quite blunt about that. I could explain the same things over and over again, answer the same questions repeatedly, but sometimes I see that a person simply wants to remain where they are. They ask questions, they show interest, because their soul is calling. My answers are for the soul. But when the personality takes over, that's the individual's own problem to resolve. The character traits you mentioned are extremely important. It is character that allows a person to separate the wheat from the chaff. Character, determination, understanding, along with knowledge that stands slightly apart. People with strong character will do everything they can to turn knowledge into virtue. From there, they develop willpower, resolve, and knowledge on how to transcend themselves in the way they choose. Knowledge is everywhere. There are countless books. People own the most profound works, left to gather dust on their shelves. Immanuel Kant, Jung, Yogananda, and many others. They boast, "Look at the books we have," but they haven't even opened them. With very few exceptions. They're busy people. They run businesses, make money. They have no time for anything else. Yet they collect books in abundance and take pride in owning them. Some people collect paintings. Perhaps that's not such a bad thing. Someone else may appreciate them later.
Can we generalize all this? After all, perfection lies in simplicity. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, as they say. When something is simple, it becomes absolute. Can we divide all experience into just two categories? Can we say that there is only love?
Yes.
And fear, which inhibits love and prevents it from fully expressing itself?
It blocks it.
Yes, it blocks it. In our previous conversation, I mentioned a moment that was pivotal for me. It was a time when I didn't believe in this teaching, didn't respect it. It meant nothing to me. I was merely engaging out of curiosity, wanting to see for myself. I spoke about what I did back then, and you said something that shifted everything, just one word. You asked me, Why are you afraid? Before you even finished the question, I realized it was true. It was fear. Fear had been driving everything I did. Now that I've seen this clearly, I can recognize fear in others as well. After all, it's impossible to truly know others before we know ourselves. I instantly recognized the inner dynamics that were operating within me, as easily as I would recognize my own reflection. Fear. It permeates everything that unfolds in this world. There's hardly any other way to explain it. Without fear, there wouldn't be so many obstacles, so many conflicts. In my time, fear often dressed itself up. White gloves, tailored suits, top-class restaurants, G-Wagons. The world is built around fear. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this constant tension. People wouldn't be obsessed with material pursuits. You'll sleep tomorrow. No, you won't sleep at all. People are expected to work around the clock. You won't sleep at all. Only fear can push people into a reality like this. Nothing else can drive them beyond life itself. It threatens individuals and the entire world. What else could it be if not fear? It's clear as day. To me. It's clear to a practitioner, but not to most people. This may sound confusing to many, but there is fear and there is love. Much of what people do is driven by fear, and I came to realize that ego itself is born from fear. Even the noblest intentions can be fear-based. Take someone striving for financial security to support their family. At its root, that drive is still fear. Fears multiply like cells, spawning new fears. But eventually they must face consciousness, higher consciousness. And it will not allow a world organized around fear. We will witness collapse. We will encounter emptiness.
Yes, we're already standing at the edge of that void. When a person grows tired of living under constant fear, they begin a spiritual journey in order to free themselves from it. Yet that very journey towards one's real self inevitably reveals countless fears along the way. It is precisely this journey that can spare a person from suffering. Once someone realizes that they are conscious and whole in themselves, fears dissolve. On the path towards unity with one's superconsciousness, one's higher self, a strength emerges that gradually erases fear. You may have heard of the Comforter, the presence of will, the presence of spirit. We meditate in order to transcend the mind, a mind that is always afraid of something, caught in duality and attachment. Beyond the mind, fear disappears. Spiritual practice slowly opens the way out. There is always a way out, and it lies exactly where the way in is. The entrance and the exit are the same. When you dive deeply within yourself, that is where power is found. This is an encounter with your true self, because your consciousness is lifted to a higher level. I'm not speaking of the kind of consciousness that clings to social identity. I'm speaking of superconsciousness, your true nature. In that state, there is no fear. In that state of consciousness, the very concept of fear doesn't exist. What does exist is unconditional love, because this level of consciousness is entirely unconditional. And this is my wish for yoga practitioners, that they do not reinforce old attachments or create new ones.
Fear.
Yes, that they do not reinforce the fear of loss or other fears. I wish that yoga practitioners who are genuinely committed to self-exploration, in our case to Kriya, yoga of the high path, come to realize their unity with this boundless, powerful state of unconditional love and peace, where violence has no place. Any form of fear is a form of violence, whether against oneself or against others. It makes no difference. Yoga, then, is a path to liberation from fear, from attachment, from all that binds us. Then you are in the world, but not of the world.